I'm looking at certain ADPs, and this blows my mind. Malik Nabers has a higher ADP than DeVonta Smith, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman. I mean, are people on drugs right now? Like, on what planet are you taking a Daniel Jones wide receiver one over DeVonta Smith? Like, what are we doing here, folks? That's insanity to me. Like, people are drunk on these rookie wide receivers, Guru.
As our guy Brett Whitefield has noted, a lot of his catches last year were inside looks and design look, gadgety type of looks. So that does beg the question. Yeah, they drafted him high in round one. Can they take full advantage? That's kind of a big ask based on the shaky quarterback situation with Daniel Jones. And also, hey, Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, not a great job so far. Is that really going to work out? We're really going to turn it around and have a really effective offense with no Saquon Barkley, by the way? Good luck. I'm just not seeing it.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
People often come into the season and they're looking at rankings and they think, all rankings are the same. Nay, I say. John Hanson's rankings are, they're from the gut, they're from data, they're from watching the film. They're what I've been using for 20 plus years in fantasy football, and I'm ecstatic to go through the Guru's redraft rankings with him today, talking wide receivers and tight ends. So some of the guys who you have a difference in ADP with at the position, and I'm going to start with DeVonta Smith of my Philadelphia Eagles here. He's got an ADP of 44. You like him a bit 26th overall. Here's why I love DeVonta Smith, and then you can give me your outlier reasons. Number one, he's badass. Number two, They are going to run so much more motion right now in this new offense, and they never did last year. If you look at the last few years with the Chargers and the Cowboys and what they were running, the motion was top 5 in the league, and the Eagles were at the bottom. Now the Eagles are going to be running a top 5 motion offense. It's going to give layup looks like we used to see for Keenan Allen, like we saw for CeeDee Lamb. And you know who that guy's going to benefit this year? It's DeVonta Smith. Tell me I'm wrong, Guru. Is that why you love him too?
Are you a Kellen Moore guy?
I may have forgotten his name while we were sitting here and I was spieling like that, so I was just not mentioning it. But yes, I'm a Kellen Moore fan.
Well, not to give it away because I won't name the town, but he literally just moved like a block and a half away from me. So I've been walking my dog a lot, seeing if I see him walking around, get some insight. But he did do a good job overall in Dallas. And, I think the offense was completely broken last year and certainly need to get some fresh thoughts in the room, basically. What about the notion that he would be lining up inside more? I think that was what I really started to like when Devontae Parker was there. Of course, Parker didn't even make it to training camp here, but hey, I've always been a skinny Batman person. 3 years in a row, I've ranked him over his ADP. And I'm not trying to, that's how it happens. And 3 years in a row, it's been pretty good. So once again, when I plugged in the numbers, that's where I have him. So he's available. He's badass. Like you mentioned, he could blow up at any time. What's there not to like with DeVonta Smith?
Yeah, you're 100% right. So he's going to be moving into a role where he's seeing more motion because of a new offensive coordinator, somebody else who's going to have a new OC, and a lot of people are frowning upon it, but you are not, and that's George Pickens with the Steelers. He's got an ADP of 55. You like him all the way up in the 30s. You got him as your wide receiver 18. Why are you so high on Georgie Pickens this year?
I know that they're going to be all about the run. I know with Arthur Smith, but I think what we're going to drop in terms of passes per game attempted by his team, I think we're going to make up in target share. Basically, I have him doing just slightly better than last year in terms of the stats here. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how good Pickens was in terms of the final numbers last year. 1,140 yards, 18 yards a catch led the NFL. 5 touchdowns after scoring 4 the year before, by the way, with when he was at 15.4 yards per catch. So I think we know what George Pickens is. We know who he is. I've interviewed him at the combine. My man is not short on confidence, and he's very energetic. And we know that, yes, they're going to run a lot, but when they throw it, he's going to be the first read there. He's going to get a lot of targets from Russ Wilson, who clearly can get the ball to a big perimeter receiver, as he did last year with Cortland Sutton. So again, I am presuming, and I think safely, that Pickens is kind of getting peppered with targets here when they do throw, and downfield opportunities, red zone stuff. I feel good about it. I think it's going to work. So, you don't have to take him where I have him, by the way, because he's falling further, but I would mark him down and get him every single time. Round 4 that's early enough for me.
If you're looking for a wide receiver in round 2, one of the names you're going to see based on ADP in your queue is Nico Collins. I loved him last year, John. I was drafting him all over the place. I remember guys in my home league, they're like, who the hell is Nico Collins and why are you drafting him? He turned out to be a wide receiver 1, finished the season as the 12th best wide receiver in terms of total points, and that's only on 80 catches. But John, this year, I can't do it. I'm not pulling the trigger on Nico Collins in the second round when they go out and now Joe Mixon's there. They go and add Stefon Diggs. Not saying I don't believe in Nico Collins' talent. Obviously, the Texans do because they just gave him a nice contract, but there's no way I'm passing on other options to take a guy in a 3-headed monster backfield, receiving group. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I was kind of agnostic on him. I wasn't high or low. I will say, coming out of Michigan, I know eyeball test wise, you're like, oh, wow, this guy's pretty darn good. 3rd round pick is okay. It's pretty good, not elite, but he's gotten better. I mean, I think you got to give him a lot of credit. Obviously, last year, CJ Stroud helped up in the yard per catch average from like 13.3 for the first 2 years to 16 plus was amazing. And by the way, also improving the catch rate. I mean, that is ridiculous. So he goes from 13 yards a catch at 56% catch rate to 16 plus and 73. That's incredible. I mean, again, that's a lot of CJ Stroud, but also it was a lot of planetary alignment, kind of the stars lining up for him. And that's probably going to be difficult to replicate with, as you mentioned, a lower target share. If Tank Dell stays healthy all year, that's Stroud's other guy. We saw him click with Dalton Schultz. He's not going to be a forgotten man. They also drafted another good tight end in Kate Stovard. So then, of course, by the way, I forgot the ultimate diva in the league right now, Stefon Diggs, who's going to whine and pout if he doesn't get the ball. So, yeah, I mean, if we're talking 4th round, 5th round, sure, but not at this ADP.
Yeah. You're higher on a guy who 2 years ago, or the season before last, finished as a top 12 wide receiver. Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a guy you were touting. I went out and drafted him in leagues, helped me get to the playoffs in several leagues. Last year, they bring in Calvin Ridley. Kirk only plays in 12 games. Okay, you kind of got kicked in the balls on that one. You're back in on him this year. Ridley's gone. It's kind of, I'm not a big Gabe Davis guy. I don't think he's going to do anything down there. But Christian Kirk back in the slot if he's healthy. I'm with you, John. I love that you're like 2 rounds ahead of on ADP, or give me a round and a half ADP on this guy.
Yeah. I mean, because I ultimately think, that's Trevor Lawrence's guy right here. I mean, let's not forget, like, that's Trevor Lawrence's guy. I'm looking now at, where I had him going into that 2021 year. I mean, I think it was pretty aggressive and it worked. And then last year, I pretty much did the same damn thing. Of course, as I say that, I can't freaking find them on a cheat sheet, but I keep all these cheat sheets, these PDFs, and I always want to go back and like really study them to see where I screwed up. But I do remember that year in 2021, I was probably 30 picks ahead of his ADP. and that worked out beautifully. God damn, why can't I find the damn thing? Every time I'm on the spot, I never find it. Last year didn't work out all that well. But again, once we get through Evan Ingram, and by the way, even he is not going to get the same amount of targets and level of targets that he got last year. Once we get through Evan Ingram, I mean, Kirk's the guy. Brian Thomas also is a little raw. Outside guy, didn't run a full route tree, not even close. But yeah, I mean, we really look at it like he's going to get plenty of volume. And dare I say, it's either him or Evan Ingram. I think Christian Kirk's the first read. I think he's good. I don't see the first read share between Ingram and Kirk, but I'm projecting this year Kirk's the first read and he leads the team.
I love that. Yeah, Christian Kirk's. And you know why I love Kirk also? These tiebreakers, when you're kind of picking between receivers, this is something good for everybody to know when you're drafting. Who's the quarterback? Who's the play caller? Listen, are you going to win a fantasy league with Trevor Lawrence? Maybe not, but he's a competent quarterback and obviously just got paid. And Doug Peterson is a really good Super Bowl winning play caller. So they're going to scheme things open for Christian Kirk. I'm with you right there. Now, we could have conversation for days about this next player. Cooper Kupp is, they got an ADP right now around 43. You've got him at like 59. The thing with Cooper Kupp is everyone remembers a few years ago when he was just setting fantasy on fire and they don't want to get burned. They're like, wait a minute. What if he's healthy? What if he can do it again? But he's 31 years old. Puka Nacua is there, kind of ate his lunch last year. They had similar numbers in terms of when you look at games played together.
Yeah.
It's just that Nacua had way more yards because he's actually explosive. Kupp kind of has been zapped by all these injuries. Yeah. You're not buying him. You're not taking him where the ADP consensus has him.
Well, and look, I'm wrong all the time, but I will say last summer when he had that setback, his ADP was still like top 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, don't do it. Like it's too scary. You look at the injury report dating back to 2022 and the variety of entries. October 30th, the pedal ankle got rolled up, foot got caught, and then that same year, November 13th, pedal ankle, high ankle sprain. Went down week 10, landed on IR. August 1st, 2023, thigh, hamstring, and then November 2023, pedal ankle is back. So that tells me that, again, Doc Addicts in this very podcast seemed to echo, and, he was kind of with me that we might have some sort of chronic thing, or we might have, just because of age and wear and tear, an issue where like this thing is not going to go away. So, I'd rather be out a year too early than a year too late. Last year I was out. And there were moments where I regretted being out, actually. But overall, if you were out on Kupp last year, was that a win or a loss?
For the most part, you won that way. Yeah, if you're out on him,
it was a win. So I'm going out again. I mean, if it came down in price a little bit, everyone can be a value at any point, but I don't think we're there with Kupp.
I'm looking at certain ADPs, and this blows my mind. Malik Nabers has a higher ADP than DeVonta Smith, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman. I mean, are people on drugs right now? Like, on what planet are you taking a Daniel Jones wide receiver 1 over DeVonta Smith? Like, what are we doing here, folks? That's insanity to me. Like, people are drunk on these rookie wide receivers, Guru. I know he's a very talented kid. If I'm playing in a dynasty league, I'd love to have him on my team. But for redraft this year, over some of these guys, you got to be crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, he is an absolute stud. There's no doubt about it in many ways. I don't know, though, if he's Jamar Chase level stud, let's say that, in terms of being a complete player. As our guy Brett Whitefield has noted, a lot of his catches last year were inside looks and design look, gadgety type of looks. So that does beg the question. Yeah, they drafted him high in round 1. Can they take full advantage? That's That's kind of a big ask based on the shaky quarterback situation with Daniel Jones. And also, hey, Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, not a great job so far. There was a moment 2-3 years ago where it looked like Kafka was going to be the next up and coming hot name. Not really. It's kind of Kafka-esque if anyone gets that reference, but we'll move on. But Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll, they took a step back last year. So is that really going to work out? We're really going to turn it around and have a really effective offense with no Saquon Barkley, by the way, because in 2022, when they had success, you could argue a lot of that was working off of Barkley. He's gone. So now all that remains is you, Dayball, and Kafka, who are underwhelming offensive coaches at this point, play callers, not bad, but I don't know if they're good. And then, a volatile rookie in Malik Nabers with Daniel Jones. Good luck. I'm just not seeing it. I could see taking him at wide receiver 39 in round 6 or something, but we're not taking him early round 4.
No, you want Malik Nabers to be like, if you start 3 wide receivers, all right. If he's your wide receiver 3, okay. If he's your flex, something like that, great. But I don't want to count on this kid every week in redraft. We're not talking best ball where,
Right.
is he going to have some blow up weeks? I'm sure he will. He's uber talented, but yeah, just for me, I can't sign off on him that early. All right, Guru, you got to throw the wet blanket here over everyone who's super excited about Stefon Diggs. This is another case of the NFL fan sees a name player going to a new situation, and maybe they're not looking at the results, the data, kind of some of the stuff we see on the back end, and they just go, "Oh, we got Stefon Diggs. He used to be great in Buffalo, and in Minnesota, he's going to be amazing in Houston." A lot of mouths to feed, and maybe the ADP, if you're 28, 30 in that area, wide receiver 14, it's a little rich.
Yeah, he's like a 5th, 6th round pick moving on to the new team. I don't say he's on his last legs, but we're now on the downside, obviously, of the career. Our separation data shows just that. He's also a pain in the ass and a little bit of a hothead, so you never know about that. But again, I mean, look, baller. Okay, 5th, 6th round, great. We're not doing it this high, and this is best ball too, so maybe that's, I don't know what that means. Is he a better best ball pick or redraft? I don't even know. But regardless, unless your ADP is like 50 and above, he's overvalued, and his ADP seems to be under 50 everywhere.
Let's shift gears and go to the tight end position. You guys can't see this because we're doing this, podcast. Guru's in his basement right now, and he's sitting on like his son's like drum kit, like stool or something like this. So shout out to John for fighting through this as we wrap things up here. Let's go to the tight ends. Travis Kelce. Everyone's talking about the demise of Travis Kelce. He's dating Taylor Swift. God bless him. A little jealous, not going to lie. But people are kind of saying, well, they're not going to use him as much. Maybe, it's kind of the beginning of the end. But you're a little higher on him, I think, than most. Tight end 2, you're looking at him is still a 2nd round pick. Why do you love Kelce so much this year?
I honestly, I think it's a lot a function of I just see shakiness at the top of the board. And, Travis Kelce has been absolute money in the bank for a decade. I mean, once we get past even like the top 15, again, Marvin Harrison's a rookie. Devontae Adams is 31, 32 now. Ayuk, there's only one ball. Olave, Derek Carr sucks. Like on and on. Like Mike Evans, getting up there, new coordinator, so I just think Kelce, to me, he kind of stood out as like, what's the upside? What's the downside? What's the stability? I think it's still good in everything. Maybe you're not going to get like peppered with targets from 2-3 years ago when people were drafting him at like 4 overall or 1 overall. But I also think to fall out of the 2nd round is that's too much. And I'm normally someone bailing on older players and overrating younger players, but it honestly, it seems like lately the markets have shifted, and now I'm the conservative guy, but I'm just looking to make good business basically.
Last year's tight end one in PPR total points was Sam LaPorta. This might shock people, John. You're about 20 picks lower on LaPorta than consensus. How come?
I mean, simply put, he had an 8% touchdown rate. And I know that they didn't do a ton else on the team, but I just don't see him scoring at that high of a rate here. I mean, that's pretty darn impressive. 120 targets, and he scored 10 touchdowns there. That means 8% of the time he caught a ball, it was for a touchdown. I mean, I don't know if we're replicating that. I know he was money and all that, but I don't think he's going to be a bust. I just I came in lower than the number. So, I mean, I think he's not the problem. I think the number is just a little too rich after just one season. That's it. That's otherwise I'd be good with him taking him when he should go, which I think based on only 1 year, is middle of the third round. Is that too much to ask? Like, or, early to middle third round, that's about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he's not that. He's clearly in the round 2.
Yeah, that's tough. Tight end is so deep this year. I don't know if I want to spend a second round pick when later on in the draft I can get somebody like the next gentleman we're going to talk about. I lovingly call him Turd Ferguson, Jake Ferguson from the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, and I must like hate watch the Cowboys, being an Eagles fan, and I just see Ferguson just makes play after play. Guy caught 71 balls last year. One of only a handful of guys with over 100 targets. They didn't really do much of anything, John, to improve their receiving room. Ferguson's going to be another focal point of this offense.
Absolutely. If you've heard me on Sirius, I've always been a big Ferguson guy. Even his rookie year, I did talk with him in Indy. He's a great guy, plays fantasy. I've said this a million times, but he's also just productive. Like he scored in the Senior Bowl in the game. I watched him, practice that week in Mobile. I'm like, all right, looks solid. Nothing ridiculous, solid. But then he scored, and then he started playing in year 1. I'm like, oh wow, look, he's doing well. He's moving pretty well. So I was all about it. And by the time we got to the end of that rookie year, I'm like, hey, get him in Dynasty because I think they're going to let Dalton Schultz go, and he could be the guy. And that did happen, even though they drafted Luke Schoonmaker, who was a buzzkill. So I think based on what you said there too, they didn't add anyone else, and that includes the running back room. So they are a little lighter receiver. They lost Michael Gallup. We lost Tony Pollard. So they have to be a passing team. And I do like Brandon Cooks this year, but once you get past Cooks and Lamb, it's Ferguson. And I always like Dak with a tight end. If you probably don't remember this, but Dak's rookie year, I actually predicted in the preseason, I on Sirius, I'm like, you know what? I've seen enough. This guy's good. He's going to be good. And he's going to throw the freaking ball to Jason Witten all day long because he's a see it and throw it quarterback who often checks it down to the tight end if that first read's not there. So, and we saw that last year with Ferguson. So I think we might even expand upon that. So he is one of my favorite values at any position this year. And he's actually my second favorite value at tight end, which will, of course, prompt you to ask me who the first one is. But I absolutely love Jake Ferguson this year.
And the last guy we talk about today is your favorite tight end. John, over the last 3 seasons, just 5 tight ends have seen 80 or more targets annually. Their names are Travis Kelce, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz, and your guy, Tyler Conklin.
Yeah, you got to say it that way too. Tyler Conklin. Absolutely. Sometimes the call is just so obvious that you're like, screw this. I'm going for it. I'm looking here at my cheat sheet. I want to find it from where we had him last year. Granted, I'm not saying it worked out incredibly well, but his ADP, and again, just so people know too, his ADP was 191. I had him at 172. So I probably would have had him higher, but I feel like if you rank someone 20 spots over his ADP, then that's a win and you're giving them an advantage. I mean, I don't need to rank him last year at 140, which I may have been inclined to do, but his ADP is 190. Like I don't need, that's so just throwing that out there. And he was good this year though. And again, I'm just going off of my projection because I think that last year he and Aaron Rodgers were a thing. And this year they're once again a thing. So I can absolutely see Aaron Rodgers leaning on Tyler Conklin as, dare I say, his second dude behind Garrett Wilson, because I'm not a Mike Williams believer in general. And I'm certainly not this year on a new team coming off an ACL. I think Malachi Corley he might need a little development here. And, maybe he's a little gadgety, but you need glue. You need some glue guys here. Dare I say, after Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin will be the glue guy. And if he starts clicking in the red zone with Aaron Rodgers and actually scores touchdowns, forget it. He's going to be like the tight end 8 on the season or better. And I know that sounds like a hot take, but look at the catch totals that you just talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who finished as PPR tight end 17 last year, and he didn't score a touchdown. Every guy ahead of him scored multiple touchdowns. He's sitting here with a goose egg, with a 70% catch rate. But hey, you get a tight end that he had nothing at quarterback last year, still caught 61 balls and was targeted 87 times. Those numbers, because the drives are going to be continued with Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to be 3 and out all over the place with the MILF Hunter under center. I mean, Tyler Conklin is the biggest steal at tight end in fantasy. So love the call, John. Well, let's get you off that drum kit or whatever you're sitting on, my friend. And we marathon day of recording podcasts here, folks. If you like what you hear, get over to fantasypoints.com, sign up, make sure you're reading the Guru's ranking, get into Fantasy Points data, check out all the great stuff on the YouTube channel. We've got incredible dynasty content. We've got offensive line rankings now on the site. It's just bigger and better than ever at Fantasy Points. You want to win your league? Just go to fantasypoints.com. All right, John. Thanks, my friend. We'll talk to you next week for the Fantasy Points podcast.